Beloved, your soulmate is in one of the lowest emotional periods they have experienced in a very long time. And the reason is not simply that they miss you. They have missed you before. They have remembered you before. They have had nights when your name appeared in their mind and they wondered what might have happened if they had been braver. But this is different. Because recently, somebody discovered something your soulmate had hidden for years. Something physical. Something that proved your soulmate's version of the ending was never the whole story. And now the person closest to them has asked the question your soulmate has been avoiding: why did you let them leave believing you had never chosen them? Beloved, your soulmate had no answer. Because the truth is almost impossible to explain without admitting how badly fear controlled them. Before we go deeper, understand that in this dramatic story, dying of regret describes being emotionally consumed by regret, not a literal medical claim. If someone is genuinely experiencing severe depression, that deserves real support rather than being romanticized. But beloved, the regret here is very real. Because there is something your soulmate never told you. Something they almost confessed on the final night. Something that could have changed the way you understood everything. Your soulmate never told you that they had already decided to go with you. Not metaphorically. Not someday. Not in some secret fantasy. They had made actual preparations. They had resigned from something. They had bought a ticket. They had packed a bag. They had begun quietly arranging a completely different future. A future that included you. And then, when you finally looked directly at them and asked, "If I leave, would you come with me?" Your soulmate said, "I don't know." Beloved, that sentence destroyed something. Because the real answer, at that exact moment, was, yes. They knew. They had already acted on it privately. But when the moment came to say it to you, fear won. And you never knew. Let me take you back. There had been a period when your life was changing. Perhaps you had received an opportunity somewhere else. Maybe a job. A move. A chance to finally leave an environment that had been exhausting you. Maybe you had talked for months about starting over. Not necessarily because you hated your old life. You simply knew you had outgrown something. Your soulmate knew. They had watched your eyes change whenever you spoke about it. You would say, "I think I need something different. Perhaps, I can't stay here forever." Your soulmate always became strangely quiet. You thought they did not care. The truth? Every time you talked about leaving, your soulmate imagined an empty life after you were gone. At first they told themselves, "This is good for them. I should support them." Then the date became real. Maybe an offer came. A deadline. Suddenly your future was not some someday fantasy. You had to decide. Your soulmate panicked. Not because they wanted you to fail. Because for the first time, life was asking them a question they could not avoid. Are you willing to build your future around this person, or are you only willing to love them while everything remains convenient? Beloved, your soulmate had always been good at loving you inside the existing structure. Same city. known routine. No major public decisions. Perhaps the relationship itself remained somewhat undefined. But moving with you? Changing work? Explaining the decision to family? Giving up a comfortable plan? That would turn hidden feelings into visible commitment. Your soulmate was terrified. Yet something surprising happened. Instead of immediately running, they started preparing. Quietly. Perhaps one morning your soulmate went to work and stared at their desk thinking, "If they leave and I stay here, I will regret it." Again. The thought would not go away. So they did something nobody knew. They started researching opportunities where you were going. Jobs. Housing. Cost of living. Perhaps transportation. Maybe visa requirements if the move was bigger. Your soulmate would sit awake late at night with their phone brightness turned low, looking at apartments near the place you had mentioned. Beloved, you thought they were becoming distant. They were secretly imagining joining you. Maybe your soulmate searched, "How much notice do I need to give? What happens if I break my lease early? How expensive are one-way tickets?" They began saving money. Perhaps canceled a purchase. Stopped spending. You noticed nothing. Why would you? They never told you. Then your soulmate did something even bigger. They spoke to their employer. Maybe not fully resigning that day. Perhaps, "I may need to leave soon." Their manager asked, "Where are you going?" Your soulmate hesitated. Then said, "Somewhere else." The manager laughed. "For another job?" Your soulmate said something like, "For a life I keep being afraid to choose." Beloved, perhaps even your soulmate was surprised hearing themselves say it. The manager thought this was about career. It was partly about you. Within days, perhaps the resignation became official. Maybe there was paperwork. An email. A final date. Your soulmate had done it. Then came the ticket. Beloved, this is the object somebody recently discovered. An old email confirmation. Perhaps a printed boarding pass tucked inside a book. One way. Same destination. The date? Only one day after you were supposed to leave. Your soulmate had planned to follow. Not weeks later. Not eventually. Immediately. Perhaps they had even chosen not to travel with you because they wanted to surprise you. Or because they were still too frightened to tell you until every practical piece was handled. That was your soulmate's first major mistake. They believed they needed to make the future safe before revealing it. They thought, "I'll tell them when I have everything arranged. When the job is settled. When the ticket is booked. When I know I can actually do it." Beloved, beneath that practical logic was fear. If they told you too early, you might become excited. Then your soulmate would become responsible for your hope. They were afraid of disappointing you. So they decided to prepare privately. And ironically, that secrecy is exactly what caused you to believe they were not preparing at all. Perhaps during this period you were becoming more anxious. The departure date was approaching. Your soulmate was behaving strangely. You wanted to know, what happens to us? Perhaps you asked, have you thought about what happens when I go? Your soulmate replied, a little. A little? Beloved, they had been looking at apartments until 2 a.m. You said, that's it? Your soulmate shrugged. Maybe, we'll figure it out. Those words hurt. Because you were asking whether the relationship had a future. Your soulmate thought they were protecting a surprise. Or protecting themselves from saying too much before they knew everything could work. But you heard, they have no plan for me. Perhaps you asked, do you even want long distance? Your soulmate said, I don't know. Again. That phrase. I don't know. It became their shield. The truth was not that they did not know what they wanted. They did not know whether they could emotionally survive choosing it. There is a difference. Beloved, eventually the pressure became unbearable. One evening, perhaps only days before your move, you asked your soulmate to meet. You were unusually calm. That scared them. Because your soulmate knew your calmness sometimes meant you had already cried alone. You looked at them and said, I need to ask you one question, and I need you to answer honestly. Your soulmate's heart began pounding. Okay. You asked, if I leave, would you come with me? Beloved. There it was. The exact future your soulmate had secretly arranged. They had a resignation. A ticket. Maybe a packed suitcase sitting at home. The answer should have been the easiest yes of their life. But in that moment, something happened inside them. Your soulmate saw everything at once. Leaving family. Losing stability. Beginning again. What if the two of you failed? What if your relationship felt different after the move? What if they gave up their existing life and someday resented you? What if you felt responsible for their sacrifices? What if you broke up 6 months later and your soulmate had nothing? Beloved, fear rushed in faster than love could speak. You waited. Would you? Your soulmate looked at you. Then said the sentence they have regretted ever since, I don't know. Perhaps your face changed instantly. Not dramatic. That was worse. You simply nodded. Okay. Your soulmate knew immediately. Something important had happened. They tried, it's just a big decision. You said, I know. I need to think. You replied, you've had time. Beloved, if only you knew how much thinking they had done. Your soulmate almost said, I bought the ticket. But shame stopped them. How ridiculous would it sound? I bought a ticket to come with you, but I'm standing here telling you I don't know. Perhaps they thought they had already ruined the moment. Maybe they could explain tomorrow. Your soulmate always believed there would be another conversation. But beloved, you had reached your limit. Perhaps you said, I'm not asking you to give up your life for me. Your soulmate said nothing. You continued, I'm asking whether you see me in yours. Beloved. There it was. The real question. Not, will you relocate? But, have you chosen me emotionally? Your soulmate wanted to say yes. Instead, I care about you. Perhaps you laughed sadly. I know you care. Then, but I can't keep building my life around someone who only knows they care when I need them to choose. Beloved, your soulmate has replayed that sentence hundreds of times. Perhaps you stood up. They said, wait. You looked back. Your soulmate's mind was screaming, tell them. Tell them about the resignation. Tell them about the ticket. Tell them the bag is packed. Tell them you have been scared because this is exactly what you want. But another voice said, not like this. Not when they're upset. Explain tomorrow. So your soulmate said, can we talk tomorrow? Perhaps you replied, I think we've talked enough. And you left. Beloved, your soulmate went home. Opened the door. And there it was. The bag. Packed. Perhaps clothes. Documents. A few personal things. Everything necessary to start a new life. Your soulmate sat beside it. Maybe stared at the ticket confirmation on their phone. They had lost you while literally preparing to follow you. How could that happen? Because hidden intention is invisible to the person who needs reassurance. Your soulmate had believed their secret actions proved love. You had no access to them. All you could respond to was, I don't know. Beloved, your soulmate considered calling you immediately. They did. Perhaps your phone rang. Maybe you did not answer. Or perhaps they ended the call before it connected. Your soulmate told themselves, tomorrow. But the next morning brought another problem. Family. Someone discovered the resignation. Perhaps a parent called. What are you doing? Your soulmate said, I'm leaving. For what? They hesitated. Then your name appeared. Perhaps family already had concerns. The reaction was intense. You are giving up everything for a relationship that isn't even stable? Beloved, your soulmate was already frightened. Now someone was validating every fear. What if this is reckless? What if you leave and regret it? Perhaps a sibling said, if they really loved you, would they expect this? Beloved, you had never demanded it. But your soulmate was vulnerable. They started believing they had been foolish. Family pressure did not create the fear. It amplified what was already inside. Then perhaps the employer called. A better offer. Stay and we'll promote you. More money. More security. Your soulmate suddenly had two futures in front of them. One known. One uncertain. You were already emotionally withdrawing after the previous night. Your soulmate thought, maybe I already lost them. What if I leave and they don't even want me there anymore? Beloved, instead of calling you and asking, they made another private decision. They canceled the ticket. They withdrew the resignation. Or perhaps negotiated to stay. They unpacked the bag. And never told you any of it. That is the secret. Beloved, perhaps you left believing your soulmate had never been seriously willing to choose you. Meanwhile, your soulmate stayed behind in a life they had nearly abandoned. At first they told themselves they had made the sensible decision. Maybe you would both heal. Perhaps the relationship had simply been too complicated. But then your new life began. You became busy. Maybe your messages slowed. Eventually stopped. Your soulmate watched from a distance. Perhaps heard you were doing well. And every update carried one thought: I could have been there. Not, I was supposed to be there. That would remove responsibility. No. I had the chance to choose it, and I became afraid. Beloved, regret works differently when the alternative was imaginary. Your soulmate could once tell themselves, maybe moving would never have been possible. But the ticket was real. The resignation was real. The packed bag was real. The future had become practical enough to touch. That is why the regret became so powerful. Perhaps for years your soulmate could not delete the ticket email. They would open it occasionally. Departure date. Flight number. Destination. Your name was not written anywhere. Yet to them, every line meant you. Maybe they kept the bag too. Or one item that had been packed. Something strange. A coffee mug you had given them. A photograph. Maybe a sweater. They unpacked everything else but left that one thing inside. Beloved, symbolic perhaps. Part of them never completed the unpacking emotionally. Then life moved. Your soulmate worked. Perhaps became successful. Maybe got the promotion they stayed for. Money improved. Their family was pleased. From the outside, good decision. Yet every achievement came with a quiet question: would I trade this for the chance to know what would have happened? Beloved, that is where regret became dangerous to their happiness. They could not fully enjoy what they had chosen because they kept comparing it to the life they refused to explore. But perhaps nobody knew. Your soulmate did not talk about it. Maybe when somebody asked about you, they said, it didn't work out. Simple. Clean. But recently, someone close to your soulmate found the evidence. Perhaps they were helping your soulmate move. Cleaning old files. A sibling found an envelope. Inside, the resignation letter. A printed itinerary. Maybe a lease inquiry from the place you moved to. The sibling stared. What is this? Your soulmate's face changed. Nothing. The sibling read the date. Then the destination. They knew enough of your history to understand. Were you going to move with them? Your soulmate said, put it down. Beloved, that answer confirmed everything. The sibling was stunned. You told everyone you didn't know what you wanted. Your soulmate sat down. I know. But this says you resigned. I know. And you bought a ticket. Silence. The sibling asked, Did they know? Your soulmate's eyes filled. No, beloved. Perhaps the sibling could not understand. Why not? Your soulmate started explaining. Fear. Wanting certainty. Family pressure. The argument. How they planned to tell you after everything was finalized. But the sibling interrupted. No, what? Why didn't you tell them when they asked? Beloved, exactly. All the context matters. But ultimately, you had asked directly. Your soulmate had an opportunity. They said, I froze. The sibling asked, and then? I thought I could tell them later. Did you? No, beloved, the sibling perhaps looked at your soulmate with disbelief. So they left thinking you didn't choose them? Your soulmate's voice broke. Yes. Then came the line that has been haunting them. You let someone grieve a rejection that wasn't even true. Beloved. That sentence broke through years of self-explanation. Your soulmate had always thought, I was scared. I made a mistake. Maybe things simply happened how they were supposed to. No. You experienced a specific rejection. You asked, would you come? They said, I don't know. You did not know they had already bought the ticket. Beloved, your soulmate had allowed you to build your healing around incomplete information. Perhaps the sibling asked, why have you never told them? Your soulmate said, what would be the point now? The sibling replied, maybe the point isn't getting them back. Silence. Maybe they deserve to know they weren't stupid for believing you loved them. Beloved, there it is. Maybe you spent years doubting yourself. You remembered how your soulmate looked at you. How intimate moments felt. How they talked sometimes. And then remembered, when it mattered, they would not choose me. Perhaps you concluded, I imagined the depth. Maybe I loved potential. Maybe they were never serious. Beloved, that interpretation helped you move forward. But part of it was wrong. Your soulmate had been extremely serious. They had been serious enough to restructure their actual life. They simply were not courageous enough to reveal it when you needed them to. And hidden commitment cannot comfort somebody experiencing visible rejection. Your soulmate knows. Perhaps they whispered, they're going to hate me more if I tell them now. The sibling asked, why? Because they'll know how close I was. Beloved, exactly. Sometimes learning someone almost chose you hurts more than believing they never intended to. If they were nowhere near ready, fine. But one ticket? One sentence? One phone call? Perhaps the future could have changed. Your soulmate fears giving you that grief. The sibling said, you're deciding for them again. Beloved. That stopped your soulmate. Again. They had decided you should not know because knowing may hurt. Same pattern. Your soulmate finally saw it. Every time truth became uncomfortable, they decided what version of reality you were allowed to have. They called it protection. It was control. And now they are living with the result. Perhaps that is why their emotional state has become so low. The evidence reopened everything. The old itinerary. The resignation letter. Your final conversation. Your soulmate stopped sleeping well. Maybe they sit awake replaying one specific moment. If I leave, would you come with me? And their own voice, I don't know. Beloved, they want to go back inside that memory and shake themselves. Tell them. But memory does not change. So now your soulmate has one option. Truth in the present. Perhaps they start writing. There is something I should have told you before you left. Delete. Then, I lied when I said I didn't know whether I would come with you. Beloved, they stare at the sentence. Is lied fair? Perhaps yes. Fear made the answer dishonest. They knew what they wanted. Maybe not whether it would work. But they knew the desire. So they continue, I had already resigned. Then, I had already bought the ticket. Maybe your soulmate starts crying while typing. Then, my bag was packed. Beloved. This is not a love confession anymore. It is evidence. But then your soulmate pauses. What are they asking from you? If the message ends there, perhaps it sounds like emotional manipulation. See what I was going to do for you. No. Your soulmate continues, none of that changes what you experienced from me. You asked me directly, and I gave you uncertainty. You had no reason to believe a future I kept hidden. Beloved, better. Then, I am not telling you this so you will come back. Maybe honest, but partly incomplete. Of course part of your soulmate hopes. So perhaps they corrected. I would be lying if I said I don't wonder whether we could ever speak again. But you deserve this truth even if your answer is no. There. Beloved, perhaps the message reaches you. You see their name. Maybe surprise. Maybe annoyance. Perhaps you have done a lot of work to create peace. You read, I had already bought the ticket. Your breathing changes. What ticket? Then you continue. And suddenly, you understand. The move. That night. The question. Beloved, perhaps you sit down. Maybe your immediate response, what? Your soulmate sees it. Calls? No. They ask, can I explain? You say, explain now. Beloved, your soulmate tells you. The resignation. The ticket. The bag. They send the old confirmation if you want proof. You look at the date. One day after your departure. Perhaps your hands become cold. This existed while you were crying over someone who told you, I don't know. I was afraid that if I said yes, you would build your future around my promise. I was afraid I would fail. I was afraid I would regret leaving. I was afraid you would feel responsible if I struggled. And when you asked me, all of those fears arrived at once. Beloved, perhaps you say, so you said you didn't. You ask, why didn't you tell me? Your soulmate answers, fear. You respond, that isn't enough. They know. So they become specific. No. Yes. But you had a ticket. Yes. And a resignation. Yes. Were you packed? Your soulmate takes a breath. Yes. Beloved. Speechless. Maybe you laugh, but not because it is funny. Disbelief. You're telling me I spent that entire night thinking you didn't want me enough. Your soulmate closes their eyes. I know. You cut them off. No, then, you don't know what that did to me. Your soulmate pauses. You're right. Good. Perhaps you tell them. You say, I thought I was forcing something. I thought I had imagined how serious we were. I thought you cared but never saw me in your future. Maybe your voice breaks. I left thinking I was the only one making a real choice. Beloved, your soulmate feels devastated. Because perhaps you were making the same choice. You simply did not know. Your soulmate says, I'm sorry. You ask, why did you cancel? There it is. The second betrayal. Not that they prepared. That they stopped. Your soulmate explains family pressure. The job offer. Their fear after your final conversation. They thought you no longer wanted them to follow. Perhaps you become angry again. Did you ask me? No. Did you call and say you had a ticket? No, so you decided again. Yes. Beloved. Exactly. Your soulmate keeps making choices around you instead of with you. Perhaps you say, you were going to uproot your entire life without telling me, then you canceled the entire thing without telling me. Your soulmate perhaps almost laughs sadly. When you say it like that, how else should I say it? No. You're right. Beloved, perhaps this is the first time they fully hear how absurd the pattern was. They confused secrecy with strength. They thought they had to present complete solutions. But relationships are built through messy collaboration. Maybe you would have said, don't resign yet. Come visit first. Let's try distance. Maybe you would have told them, I don't want you sacrificing everything. There were many possibilities. Your soulmate allowed none of them because they never brought you into the decision. You ask, did you ever actually want to come? Immediate, yes. No ambiguity now. How badly? Your soulmate becomes emotional. Enough that I planned my life around it before I became brave enough to admit I wanted it. Beloved. Maybe that line hurts. Because perhaps that was always your soulmate. Strong in private. Unclear in front of you. You say, that was the problem. I know. You had entire relationships with me inside your head. Beloved. That lands. Plans. Dreams. Fears. Conversations rehearsed alone. You received fragments. Your soulmate says, yes. Perhaps you ask, do you still have the ticket? Not valid. You almost laugh. I know that. Then, do you still have it? Yes. Why? Your soulmate takes time. Then, because it's proof that I wasn't confused about you. I was scared of myself. Beloved. There it is. Perhaps for years your soulmate called themselves confused. They were not confused about the love. They were confused about whether they were courageous enough to live according to it. You might say, I wish I knew. Your soulmate whispers, I know. This time perhaps you let them say it. Then, I wish I had let you. Beloved, important. Not, I wish you somehow discovered. Your soulmate's responsibility was to tell. Perhaps you ask, why tell me now? Your soulmate could mention their emotional low. But they do not want you feeling responsible for their mental state. Good. They say, someone found the old itinerary. Then, they asked whether you knew. I said no. And they told me I was still deciding for you by keeping it secret. Beloved, perhaps you respect the answer. You ask, are you okay? Your soulmate answers honestly. I'm struggling. Then, importantly, but that isn't yours to fix. Beloved. Maybe that surprises you. Because if your soulmate really is emotionally low, you should not become their treatment. Your soulmate needs support beyond one romantic relationship. Perhaps they say, I've talked to someone. Maybe a therapist. A trusted person. I'm dealing with it. Good. Then, I contacted you because you deserve the truth, not because I expect you to make me feel better. Beloved, that distinction matters immensely. Perhaps you say, I'm glad. Then silence. What now? Your soulmate eventually asks, can I ask you something? What? If you had known, would you have wanted me to come? Beloved, here is the question they have been afraid of for years. You think. Maybe the answer comes immediately. Yes. Your soulmate stops breathing for a second. Perhaps tears. But you continue, back then. Important. Back then. Not necessarily now. Your soulmate says, I understand. Maybe you say, I didn't need you to arrive with your entire life packed. Pause. I needed you to tell me you wanted to try. Beloved. There it is. Your soulmate had believed commitment required an enormous sacrifice. You wanted communication. Perhaps you would have worked it out together. Maybe long distance. Maybe they visit. Maybe eventually move. But your soulmate jumped from hidden love to hidden life-changing decision. Then collapsed under its weight. You say, you made it too big. Your soulmate looks confused. What? You treated choosing me like you had to destroy your old life overnight. Beloved. Exactly. Perhaps that was the fear. To choose you meant, resign. Move. Fight family. Rebuild everything. Of course they panicked. Maybe a healthier choice would have been smaller. I love you. I want us. Let's see whether we can make distance work. Then one decision at a time. Your soulmate whispers, I never thought of it that way. You reply, I did. Beloved. Maybe you had. Perhaps you never expected them to follow the next day. You simply wanted to know they were emotionally participating. Your soulmate imagined the biggest possible version of commitment and became terrified by a requirement you never made. That realization deepens their regret. But beloved, this is where you must be careful. Regret cannot become a reason to worship the lost timeline. Maybe your soulmate had moved. Perhaps the relationship still would have failed. Maybe living together would reveal incompatibilities. Perhaps family problems would remain. Nobody knows. The road not taken always becomes too perfect in memory. You remind them. Just because you had a ticket doesn't mean we would have had forever. Your soulmate says, I know. Then perhaps, I don't regret losing a guaranteed forever. What do you regret? Beloved, they answer, not giving us the chance to find out honestly. That is healthier. Perhaps you understand. Because maybe that is what you grieve too. Not some fantasy marriage. The lack of truthful opportunity. You never got to decide together. Fear decided separately. Perhaps you say, that I understand. Beloved, maybe this is the first bridge. Not reunion. Understanding. Days pass. Your soulmate does not flood you with messages. Maybe you need space after learning this. They give it. Perhaps you study the itinerary again. Maybe notice the seat number. The exact time. Something absurdly ordinary. Proof that this was not some romantic story invented years later. Your soulmate really planned to be there. Perhaps you think about how differently you viewed yourself after the breakup. You told yourself, I will never again ask someone to choose me. Maybe that became a strength. But perhaps it also made you too afraid to express needs. Because asking had once led to, I don't know. Beloved, now you know that answer was not about your worth. It was about your soulmate's fear. That information may heal something without requiring you to go back. Perhaps you message, I believe you. Your soulmate sees it. Maybe cries. Not because that means, take me back. Because you finally know. They answer, thank you. You say, I'm still angry. Your soulmate responds, you should be. Maybe, I'm not going to ask you to make the truth comfortable for me. Beloved. Good. Perhaps you continue talking slowly. Then something interesting happens. A new opportunity appears in your life. Another possible move. Maybe this time you are already speaking with your soulmate again. You mention it. Beloved, your soulmate's old fear returns immediately. Not again. The old itinerary flashes in their mind. Perhaps instinct says, say something supportive and hide what you feel. But they catch themselves. They tell you, I'm happy for you, and I'm scared. You look at them. Scared of what? That if you go, I'll lose the chance to rebuild something with you. Beloved. There. Not, don't go. No secret ticket. No hidden sacrifice. Truth. You ask, do you want me to turn it down? Your soulmate thinks. Then, no, perhaps, I want us to talk about what it would mean. Beautiful. You sit together. Options. Timelines. Distance. Visits. What each person actually wants. No one secretly resigns tonight. Beloved, this may be the moment you finally see change. Your soulmate is not less afraid. They simply stopped making fear private. Perhaps you say, this is what I needed from you before. Your soulmate knows. Yes. Maybe tears. But no wallowing. They continue the conversation. That is repair. Beloved, perhaps the new opportunity is right for you. You accept. This time your soulmate says, I want to try long distance. Clear. Perhaps you agree. Or perhaps you do not. Maybe you say, I don't want to rebuild under that pressure. Painful. But now the answer is real. Your soulmate can grieve truth instead of ambiguity. Perhaps that alone is a victory. But maybe you agree. Then one day, months later, your soulmate visits. They buy another ticket. Beloved, this time they tell you before purchasing. I'm thinking about coming next month. Does that work for you? You smile. Yes. They book it. Send confirmation. Perhaps you joke, look at you telling me about your tickets now. Your soulmate laughs. Painful history transformed. Maybe they say, I've evolved. Beloved, perhaps there is warmth. When they arrive, you meet them. No secret bag. No dramatic one-way move. Just a visit. A reasonable step. Maybe that is the lesson. Healthy love does not always need the grandest proof. Sometimes the person willing to take one clear step with you is safer than the person secretly planning 100. Beloved, your soulmate eventually tells you, the strangest thing is I thought buying that ticket meant I had chosen you. You ask, hadn't you? They shake their head. I chose you privately. Pause. I didn't choose you where it counted. Beloved. Yes. Choice has to become communicable. Your soulmate might have loved you completely inside themselves. But relationships happen between people. Not only inside one person. Perhaps you answer, I never needed a secret sacrifice. What did you need? A visible partner. There. The entire story. Your soulmate is deeply regretful because they now understand the difference. They had spent nights imagining your future. Made practical plans. Nearly changed everything. But when you needed a sentence, they could not give it. Perhaps this is why the regret became so heavy. Not because they did nothing. Because they did so much in secret that none of it reached you. Beloved, perhaps your soulmate once believed actions mattered more than words. True. But hidden actions cannot replace necessary communication. And words without actions are empty too. Healthy love needs alignment. Say, I want to come. Then discuss what coming means. Perhaps later, act. No performance. No hidden test. No surprise sacrifice. Beloved, if your soulmate is genuinely changing, they will also stop treating regret as proof of love. Crying every night does not repair you. Depression does not make them more deserving of your return. They need support. Accountability. New behavior. You are not supposed to rescue them from the consequences of their past. Perhaps your soulmate knows this. Maybe they tell someone, I don't want them coming back because they feel sorry for me. The friend says, then what do you want? Your soulmate answers, if they ever choose me again, I want it to be because they can see who I am now. Beloved. Good. Perhaps they begin caring for their mental state properly. Talking to somebody. Sleeping. Eating. Returning to life. Not because they stopped loving you. Because love should not require destroying themselves through regret. They cannot change that old night. They can change the next difficult conversation. That is where growth lives. Perhaps you tell them exactly that. I don't want you punishing yourself forever. Your soulmate asks, why? You answer, because that doesn't help me. Beloved. Maybe that shocks them. They thought suffering proved remorse. No. Changed behavior proves learning. You continue, if you feel guilty, do something useful with it. What? Never make someone guess when you already know. Beloved. Perhaps your soulmate smiles through tears. Fair. And that becomes the rule. If they love, say it. If they fear, say it. If they want to go, say it. If they want to stay, say it. If they are confused, name what they are actually confused about rather than pretending the entire relationship is uncertain. Beloved, perhaps years later, your soulmate finally deletes the old cancelled itinerary. Before doing it, they show you. Maybe you are together. Maybe simply on good terms. They say, I think I'm ready to get rid of this. You look at the old ticket. Perhaps you feel something. The life that did not happen. Then you tell them, delete it. Your soulmate hesitates. What if I forget? You ask, forget what? The mistake. Beloved, perhaps you say, you don't need to keep the punishment to keep the lesson. Powerful. Your soulmate looks at you. Then deletes it. Not deleting the love. Not deleting history. Releasing a symbol that had turned regret into an identity. Perhaps they exhale. And beloved, maybe that is when the deep depression begins lifting, not because you saved them, but because your soulmate finally stopped believing suffering was the only acceptable response to a mistake. They can regret, repair, learn, live. Perhaps your soulmate says, "I wish I had told you." You answer, "I know." Then they say, "I was coming." Maybe you smile sadly. "I know that now too, beloved." And perhaps that is enough. Maybe it leads to a new relationship. Maybe it becomes closure. Both outcomes can honor the truth. But your soulmate needed you to know one thing: when you asked them whether they would come, they had already bought the ticket. They had already started leaving their old life. They had already packed. They had already imagined waking up somewhere new with you nearby. What stopped them was not a lack of love. It was fear powerful enough to make someone betray their own decision at the exact moment they needed to speak it. Beloved, that does not erase what you experienced. You received, "I don't know." That was real too. Your soulmate has learned that internal certainty means very little if external fear controls every important choice. So if they come toward you now, do not choose them because of an old ticket. Do not choose them because they regret. Do not choose them because they are emotionally struggling. Choose only if the person in front of you today can do the thing the person back then could not: tell you the truth before fear tells the story for them. Perhaps your soulmate finally says, "The biggest regret of my life isn't that I canceled the ticket." You ask, "What is it?" They look at you. "That I let you leave believing there had never been one." Beloved, there is the truth. They could survive losing a flight, a job, a plan. What they cannot easily forgive themselves for is knowing you walked away believing you had imagined their willingness to build a future. You had not. The future existed. In searches, paperwork, a packed bag, a one-way ticket. Inside your soulmate's heart. It simply never became a future the two of you were allowed to discuss. And perhaps that is the final lesson your soulmate has finally learned: love should not make enormous decisions in secret. It should bring fear to the table. Put the ticket down between two people. Say, "I want to come." Then ask, "How do we do this without either of us losing ourselves?" Beloved, perhaps that one conversation could have changed everything. Perhaps not. Nobody gets to know now. But if another chapter ever appears, your soulmate no longer wants to build it through hidden plans and delayed confessions. This time, if they want you, they will say it. If they are afraid, they will say that too. If they intend to stay, you will not discover it years later inside an old envelope. You will know while the choice still matters. Because your soulmate's deepest regret was never simply losing you. It was knowing that when you asked them one final time whether they would choose the future with you, they had already said yes with their actions in private, and still allowed fear to make them say, "I don't know," to your face. And beloved, they never want to make someone they love live inside that contradiction again.